If you would, turn to Psalm 37. This morning's message is entitled, How to Have Peace. How to Have Peace. Sometimes you may ask, it's a perennial question, is it worth it to be a Bible-believing, holy living, godly Christian? You know, sometimes you look at the wicked and they're prospering and they're enjoying themselves, they're safe, they're secure, and they're happy, and you wonder, man, if I did what they did, I would be what they are. If I stopped being a disciple of Christ, I could have more of the things of this world. You see the ungodly, you see the immoral people who seem to have it all, and they're prosperous. And you ask the question, does it really pay to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? Let me give you some scenarios that are very real. There's a young man. He begins as senior pastor in a mainline conservative church. He thinks to himself, I can grow this church if I absorb the current culture by lowering the standards, by producing a worldly worship and pragmatic ministry. I can change my focus from fundamental doctrines to name it, claim it theology. I can promote easy believism. In his heart, he wants to be like the big-name preachers and the big-name churches. He is envious of wrongdoers. A young, single, professional Christian woman. She's doing well in her career, yet she desires but has not yet found that special man to marry. Her unsaved friend and coworker has moved in with a boyfriend and plans to be married in a few months. This godly woman is encouraged by her unsaved friend to find a guy and try out living with him because that's what everybody does. It's the only way to know if he's the right one. Everybody does it that way these days. So this Christian woman begins to think, well, maybe she's right. Look, it's working for her. What's going on in her heart? She's envious of evildoers. A godly teenage boy loves sports. He's the captain of every team that he plays. Yet his competition seems to be bigger and stronger. He knows that they've taken sports-enhancing drugs. He knows a friend who knows a friend who can get a hold of these drugs for him. His previous competitors recently received a full-ride sports scholarship at a big-name university. He begins to wonder in his heart, should I go down that path? What's going on in his heart? He's becoming envious of evildoers. A young, lovely Christian teenage girl sees how other girls show off their skin and get the attention of all the boys. Her parents have taught her about biblical modesty, yet the teen boys hardly notice her at all. She thinks to herself, my parents are too strict. Other people who call themselves Christians don't dress modestly. Maybe I can just show a little more. What's going on in her head? She's envious of evildoers. A married man sees other men in the neighborhood trading in their wives and their cars for a newer and younger model. They seem happier than him. He's envious of evildoers. A married woman sees how her neighbor friends dishonor and disrespect their husbands. Her sisters are not much different. They don't submit to their husbands, yet they seem to get more from their husbands, and they seem to be happier. What's going on in her heart? She's envious of evildoers. So being envious of evildoers, being envious of those who do wrong and yet appear to be successful and happy, is a temptation that we all face. This is a very real temptation. This is where the rubber meets the road. I mean, Christian testimonies are at stake here. Lives are at stake. Careers are at stake. When we envy those who are doing wickedly and we desire to be like them, or we get angry that we're not doing as well. What must I do when I wrestle with issues like this? How that the wicked in this world seem to prosper while I, as a disciple of Jesus Christ, am attempting to live a righteous and a holy life, and I'm wrestling with these issues. How am I going to have peace? How do I answer the question, is it worth it to follow Jesus Christ? And the answer is absolutely. Yes, it is. And in the psalm today, we're going to see how to have peace when we face circumstances like what I've just given you examples about. So Psalm 37, if you look at verse 25, David is giving his testimony here. We'll get back to verse 1 in a minute, but he says, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. So David is looking back upon his life, and he considers all these things that we've talked about so far. How the wicked seem to be powerful and oppressive, they seem to be safe, they seem to be secure, and they seem to be happy. What should my response be as a follower of Jesus Christ? How can I have peace when I wrestle with issues like this? How do I have peace? Well, he gives us several different instructions on how to have peace, but we're going to go to the thou shalt nots first. All right, let's look at verses 1 and 2 of Psalm 37, the things that we should not do. He says, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Now jump to verse 7. He says, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who brings wicked devices to pass. Now verse 8. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. And here's the third time he says, fret not thyself in any wise to do evil, because it only leads to harm. So the word fret not, repeated 3 times, as we've read here, means don't blaze up. Don't grow warm and all heated with anger or with envy or with jealousy. Fret not. The English word fret comes from the Old English word fretan. Fretan means to devour, to eat, to gnaw away at. If we put these two together and we get this word picture, how do I keep my peace in a world which seems to be unfair? Number 1, fret not. Putting those 2 word pictures together here, imagine envy as a rat gnawing at your soul and at your heart. And imagine Satan as an arsonist trying to light the fire of anger to get you to do evil. So David here, living by experience, saying this, I've been young, I've been old, I've seen many things, I've suffered many things, I've learned many lessons, and based upon a lifetime of experience, the way to have peace is to kill the rat of envy and to put out the fire of anger. Fret not, because it only leads to doing of evil, it only leads to doing damage, it only leads to doing harm, as we see in verse 8. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. If you keep on fretting and getting all heated up and bothered because you're not doing as well as the evildoers, and they do bad, and I'm trying to live a godly life, God, what? You know, you get angry, you get stirred up, and that anger, if not kept in check, will lead to doing damage or harm. Let me give you an example of a football illustration, okay? There's practical wisdom in David's words here, because an angry man or an angry woman is vulnerable to attacks of the devil, is vulnerable to doing things that which are wrong or evil. There's a story about Norm Evans. Some of you may remember, he was an all-pro tackle for the Miami Dolphins. He was on the famous 1972 team that went 14-0, the first perfect record in the NFL history. He learned how important it was to keep your cool. He says this, and I quote, "It's really dangerous for a pro football player to get angry. In fact, that's when linemen sustain their most serious injuries. Anger is so harmful in football that if I can get an opposing lineman or an end angry at me, he will concentrate on beating me and forget to attack the quarterback. And that's my job, protect the quarterback." So in the same way, a wide receiver might try to get a defensive back angry. If he can get into the defensive back's head, he can fool him on the next play. Satan is going to try to get into your head. and get you angry, envious, and covetous at those who live wicked lives, and yet they seem to prosper. But the answer is, don't let him get you off the path. Don't let him get you off your game. Be cool, be patient, wait on the Lord. I remember I was 12 or 13 years old, and we were playing in a football championship. And I was a team captain, and I was the big, strong guy, and the other team captain was the fast running back, small guy. And I remember we were just going at it, and there was a play, for some reason, the quarterback, our running back is gone, and I'm just watching and cheering, and all of a sudden, I get plastered, blindsided with a helmet and shoulder pads right to the chest, and knocks my air right out. And then, every time a play was over, one guy just kept on attacking me. It wasn't until about a year later, or a season later, that I found out the head coach of the other team, the football team, was my brother's Pony League baseball team coach. And I was told that guy's mission that day was just to take me out. And you know what happened? We won the game. You know why? He was one of the best players on their team, and he was taken out of the plays. That's what happens when Satan can light a fire of anger and envy in you, that you forget to walk the Christian life, that you forget to stay on the path of righteousness. And so the first order for us to have peace in a world which seems unfair is this: don't get angry, don't fret, remain cool. Remain cool. All right, so his argument continues in verses 9 through 11 here. For evildoers shall be cut off. For those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. So David's message: don't fume, don't get all burned up. Rather, cool down. Cool your jets. Don't worry about them. Don't envy them. Anger will only lead to damage. And his argument is saying, listen, those evildoers, these wicked, are temporary. They'll be gone one day. Okay, like the grass that is soon cut down and burned, they're transitory. God will judge, and they will be gone. To appreciate the illustration there, it's this. In that region of the world, vegetation would grow up quickly during the rainy season and immediately after the rainy season. But once the rain season was gone, boom, the vegetation was gone. And so David is saying, look at the vegetation here, like the grass. It comes and goes quickly, and that's the same thing that's going to happen to those who are wicked and those who are prospering. They will come and they will go, and God will take them out. They will be judged eventually. So fret not. That's the negative side of keeping our peace during these days. Don't be agitated over the prosperity of the wicked, because if we allow ourselves to envy them, we will be tempted to follow their example. Maybe I can cut some corners. Maybe I can pad the numbers. Maybe I can get the promotion. And so don't be agitated or angry at the success of the wicked. But the positive side now is, that's the negative side of the picture. Do not fret, do not envy. But the positive side we see in verses 3 and 4. What should you do? What should I not do? Don't fret, don't get angry, cease from wrath. What should I do? Verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. The word trust there means to hasten, to run to the place of safety, run to the place of refuge, to lean on, to be confident in. The original meaning of this word was to lay face down, totally, a picture of complete dependence, total trust in God. So trust in the Lord without reservation, without conditions, and without stipulations. Total trust in Him. Because the cure for fretting is faith. The cure for fretting is faith. Regardless of the circumstances around us, we have to trust in the Lord. And so the idea here is this: I'm going to submit to the will of God. I'm going to trust Him to sort out everything that seems to be unjust, unequal, or not right. He's going to settle those conflicts of life. But it doesn't end there. He says, trust in the Lord And what follows after is, and do good. If you trust in the Lord, in other words, if you have faith, faith will lead to good works. Trust in the Lord and do good. A faith that trusts will be a faith that has an outlet of service, of ministry, of good works. In fact, one of the best ways to avoid being envious of the wicked, one of the best ways to avoid being desiring to do what they do is to do this: be busy doing good. Okay, I know it's a cliche, but it's true. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. All right? He can get in and plant an idea in there that will set you off on the wrong path. So each one of us should know so much what God's will for you is to do in terms of ministry, service, in terms of spiritual maturity, that you are busy doing good, that you might not be tempted to do evil. All right, so trust in the Lord, do good, and it says, so shall you dwell in the land. That's mentioned 6 times, that phrase, in the land. Literally speaking, David is talking to those people in Israel, and I think there's a vision of a millennial kingdom coming, okay? But absolutely, right here in the now and now, I'm thinking of Ruth. Remember the story of Ruth and Naomi? Naomi and her husband leave the land, okay? And David said, don't leave the land, okay? God's going to provide for you. Trust God. Believe God. In fact, eventually they would come back to the land, wouldn't they? So trust in Him, do good, dwell in the land of His promises, the literal land of promise. Trust in Him, and verily you shall be fed. You shall feed on His faithfulness. The good shepherd will always take care of his sheep. Trust, do good, feed on His faithfulness, and trust the good shepherd. He'll take care of you. So you shall be fed. Trust in the Lord. The wicked, even though they appear to be prospering, they're not going to last. Again, verse 4. Let's look at verse 4 as we move here from our first instruction, positive instruction, to trust in the Lord. We're going to look at our second positive instruction, to delight. It says, verse 4, delight thyself also in the Lord, and He shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Literally, the word delight there means to be soft or pliable. The idea is that it comes from a root word that means to be brought up in luxury, to be pampered, to pamper yourself, to delight yourself, to refresh yourself, to take pleasure of yourself in God. That's the idea here. If we make God the object of our heart's affections, our emotions, if we meditate on Him, if we serve Him, okay, we're actively involved in doing good, then we're going to be found being pampered, delighted, and refreshed in Him. So to delight in Him is to delight in who He is, to take pleasure in His service, in serving Him, to enjoy His fellowship. Trust in the Lord, do good, feed on His faithfulness, and just be happy, delight. Pamper yourself in His goodness, okay? Pamper yourself in His blessings, but don't forget the blesser is where the blessing comes from. Delight in the blesser and His blessings. The one who delights in Him is going to have righteous desires. When believers delight in the Lord, their desires, or His desires, become their desires. I enjoy fellowship with God. I enjoy His Word. His Word is in me, and I am in Him. And what happens? Jesus says it in this way, and here's the concept here. In John 15:7, Jesus says, if you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. In other words, the desires of your heart are His desires for you. You can be confident that you're in His will. You can be confident that the desires that you have are the desires that He has for you. And if that is the case, you will have what you desire, and you will have what God intends for you to have. Okay? Delight yourself in the Lord, and He shall give you the desires of your heart. So when we take pleasure in God, He's going to give us what's good for us. And He's going to give us the desires of our heart, because that's what we will want, the desires of His heart. So the second positive instruction was to delight. The first was to trust. The third positive instruction is in verse 5 here. Commit. Let's read it. Verse 5 and 6. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. The word commit here literally means to roll off. Okay? The burdens of my heart, the burdens that are heavy on me, I roll off unto him. Same concept in 1 Peter 5:7. Casting all your cares on him because he cares for you. That's the picture here. Rolling off your burdens on him. And when he takes our burdens, it doesn't mean that we become irresponsible. Okay? He takes our burdens so that we can serve him better. So casting all your cares, commit your way, roll off your burdens unto him, and you'll have that peace. So we cast our burdens, we cast ourselves, we cast our lives unreservedly unto him. And what does it say? It says, commit your way unto the Lord. There's the word trust again, unreservedly, everything that you are. Trust in him. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. You may ask, what is he going to bring to pass? One of the things that he'll bring to pass is the vindication of his just servants, of his godly children. Whether in this life or in the life to come, look what he says in the next verse, the second half of verse 6. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgments as the noonday. God is going to bring your righteous living to light. Not too far differently than what Jesus commands here. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Trust in the Lord. Do good. Keep doing good. And that goodness, that holy living, that righteous living is going to come into play. And there's no doubt in my mind that sometime, some man who thought he was being skipped over for a promotion was noticed by his bosses that he was a man of integrity, a man of honesty, a man of diligence, and he worked well. And guess what happened? His righteousness, his good living, and good working came forth, and that man was promoted. God's going to make sure that your righteousness will shine forth, and people will see your good works, and they will glorify God, which is in heaven. So commit your way unto the Lord. And the fourth positive instruction here, verse 7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Rest. Some translations say be still, and that's an accurate translation as well. Okay, when you're resting, you're being still. But the idea behind being still and resting is this: you're silent. You're not complaining. You're not murmuring. Why does so-and-so who is wicked get the blessing, get the promotion, get whatever they've got coming, even though they do wrong? Rest. Be still. Be quiet. Because you have to recognize that God is fully in control. You know, in your mind, all you start thinking, man, all I had to do was pad the numbers. All I had to do was cut the corners, and I would have gotten that. Because that's what he did to get the promotion. But God says, be still. God's in control. Wait for him to work things out. Okay? Wait. Synchronize your heart with God's timetable. Wait on him, and he's going to bring it to pass. He will take care of his own. But you know, sometimes waiting is the hardest part. You know, sometimes we joke around here about waiting and things taking longer than they should. I remember about 7 or 8 weeks ago, I had to go to a store. You know, I had 3 items to get in, get out, get it done, right? I was figuring I'd spend 5 to 10 minutes in there, right? But it was a busy day, and all the registers had lines in them, and even the self-pay line were longer than the registers. And so I'm looking, I'm going to go there. There's only 2. There's the minimum amount of stuff in the cart. I get in line, and wouldn't you know, coupon lady comes, and we got to wait, and I'm in pain waiting. And then the lady after her, oh, there was no price on this one. Can we get a price check? I'm thinking, no, please. The hardest thing, though, for us is to wait. Some of you laugh because you know exactly what I'm saying. The hardest thing for us to do is wait. And that's what God says you must do. Rest in the Lord. And sometimes when we roll our cares on Him, what we do is we roll it back like a Harlem Globetrotter with a basketball. We cast our cares upon Him and we take it back, and one poet said it in this way: it is God's will that I should cast on Him my care each day. He also bids me not to cast my confidence away. But oh, I'm so foolish that when taken unawares, I cast away my confidence and I carry all my cares. But God says, commit, roll everything that's burdening you on Him. In fact, roll yourself on the altar as well. And if you can look here in these phrases, as it says, cast your care upon Him, commit your way unto Him, and be patient, wait on Him, wait patiently for Him, you'll see that the last phrase there is always in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Delight in the Lord. Commit your way to the Lord. Rest in the Lord. Wait patiently for Him. Okay. And again, sometimes this is the hardest thing for us to do, but true faith waits. Faith will wait and believe God and is confident that God is able to do what He promised He would do. True faith waits. Now, those are the positive instructions for us to have peace in this world which seems unfair. But what happens with the wicked? I think the phrase the wicked is mentioned 14 or 16 times in the KJV here, but we're going to look at the wicked, the way of the wicked. Let's read verses 12 to 20. Follow along as I read, and we'll just summarize what they do and what they are. Verse 12, the wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. Look, judgment is coming. You know, you think you can do what you want, but judgment is coming. The wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and the needy and to slay such as be of upright conversation. I am reminded of Haman and the whole situation in the book of Esther. Haman building a gallows for Mordecai, and eventually Haman is hung on his own gallows. Justice is coming. Okay? If not in this life, then the life which is to come. Verse 15 describes it well. Their swords shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. 16, a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. For the arms of the wicked shall be broken, but the Lord upholds the righteous. The Lord knows the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in the evil time, and in the days of famine they shall be satisfied. God's going to take care of His own. But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of the Lord shall be as of the fat of lambs. They shall consume into smoke, shall they consume away. So, as the wicked are doing what they do, they're sowing these types of behaviors, they're sowing these types of actions, they plot against the ungodly, and in verse 21, we didn't read it yet, but they borrow and do not repay. Okay. They are sowing these things, and they're building up judgment that will fall upon them in the day of judgment. What will they reap? Okay, according to your notes there, number one, they're going to disappear. They're going to fade as the grass. They're going to be destroyed. They will be perished and burned up, like verse 20 shows us. They are laughed at by the Lord when they scheme against God's people, because God knows their judgment is coming. Verse 15 shows us that they will destroy themselves, like Haman and the gallows. Their strength will be shattered. Their arms shall be broken. Verse 17. They will reap what they have sown, ultimately, when the day of judgment comes. Okay, consider their end and don't be jealous. But now, what do the righteous do? How do the righteous live? Verses 21 to 31. And the third point of our outline here, the way of the righteous looks like this. Verse 21. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous show mercy and giveth. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. And we sung this verse this morning, verse 23. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. Here's the testimony of an old man. I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Depart from evil, and do good, and dwell forevermore. For the Lord loveth judgment, and forsaketh not his saints. They are preserved forever, but the seed of the wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land, and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, and his tongue talketh of judgment. The law of his God is in his heart, and none of his steps shall slide. So what do the righteous sow in life? They sow trust in God. They sow good works. They sow delight in God. They commit their way to God. They rest and wait patiently on God. They refrain from anger. They cease from wrath. They're satisfied, as verse 16 says, with little, because they have a lot in the Lord. They give generously. Okay, they don't love what the world loves. The world loves money, but the believer loves God. Money is not an issue about money. Money is an issue about trust. Who do you love and who do you trust? So those who are righteous will give, and they will give generously to those in need. They will give generously to those who are doing the work of the gospel ministry. They are satisfied with little. They give much. It goes on to say they speak wisely. They fill their hearts with God's law. They are honest. They love peace. And what are they going to reap? They're going to dwell safely in the land. Literally, for those Jews, they're going to dwell safely in the land. They prosper, verses 3 and 11. They receive the desires of the heart, Psalm 37:4. They'll inherit the land. They'll be seen as innocent and just. Their righteousness shall be brought as the noonday. People will see their good works and glorify God, which is in heaven. They're cared for. They'll receive an eternal reward. They're directed by the Lord. They'll never be forsaken. Their children are a blessing. They are being protected. God does watch over his own. The righteous will have a reaping. They will reap what they have sown. But now let's look at the end of both. What happens to both the wicked and the righteous in this life towards the end? Verse 32, the future of the wicked and the righteous. The wicked watcheth the righteous and seeketh to slay him. The Lord will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged. Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree. The picture there is that this thing is just big, it's growing. The wicked have power. They spread in every aspect of life and government, of finance, and they're oppressive. He says, I've seen the wicked grow in that way. Verse 36, though, yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the perfect man, the blameless man, and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The end of the wicked shall be cut off. But the salvation of the righteous is of the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. So what's going to happen to the wicked ultimately? They're not going to succeed. Verse 33. Verse 38, they will have no future. Judgment is coming. What's going to happen to the righteous? According to verse 34, they're going to be exalted. They will be honored. They have a wonderful future, verses 37 and verse 40. God's going to help them, deliver them, honor them, save them, because they trust in them. You know, in the day when God settles all accounts, the righteous will see how just God is. There will be an ultimate vindication of the righteous. If you look at the wicked and their prosperity, their security, their safety in money or finances or whatever it is, and you think, I wish I were like them, consider their end. They will have to face the judgment of God. A great day of reckoning is coming when truth will be on the side of the godly and every crooked thing will be made straight. David, again, looking back upon his life as an old man here in verse 25, he says, I've been young, now I'm old. Just think of his life very quickly and how God shepherded his life, how God sustained him, protected him. Think of David, the young shepherd, taking care of the sheep. God gave him strength to overcome the lion. He gave him strength to overcome the bear. He gave him strength to overcome the giant. As a shepherd, God saw how David lived, and God took care of his own. But think of David as the soldier and as the king. David had to run from his own rebellious son Absalom. Twice he's had to run from kings. Absalom, who tried to usurp the crown. David the soldier, David the king, David the sweet singer of Israel. David knew by experience what he was talking about. God took care of him at each stage of life, when he was young and when he was old. Why? Because David trusted in him. Even David the sinner. Remember David the sinner? Though he fell, he was not utterly cast down because the Lord upheld him with his hand. David knew what he was talking about. David did not say that the righteous, you're never going to go through trials, you're never going to have afflictions. He never said God's people will never suffer, because he did suffer. He did not say that you wouldn't have anguish, that you wouldn't have a sense of anger over the things that are going on in this world. David essentially says this: the righteous are going to suffer, the righteous will go through trials, but the Lord is with him every step of the way. Verse 40, and the Lord shall help them and deliver them, and he shall deliver them from the wicked and save them, because they trust in him. Ultimately, the wicked prosper now, but they will be destroyed. He gives us wise counsel. As I summarize the conclusion here, what should I do to have this peace? Trust in the Lord. If you walk by sight and not by faith, you're going to struggle. You're going to find it easy to fret. So what should you do? Trust in the Lord. Number 2, delight in the Lord. Find your joy, your happiness, your pleasure in him and his will. Trust in the Lord, delight in the Lord, commit your way to the Lord. Let God guide your steps. Choose your joys, protect your name, and bless your work. Commit your way into the Lord. Rest in the Lord. You know, sometimes God makes us wait. He waits in answering prayer so that he might strengthen our patience. rest in the Lord, and lastly, wait on the Lord. You might ask, what am I waiting for? Waiting for his answer, but waiting for the King to return. Waiting for the promise of heaven. That is the inheritance of the saints. That is the inheritance of the church. You will one day receive your inheritance, so be patient. It is worth more than all the riches of this world, his rule in your life. And so verse 37 says, mark the perfect man, the blameless man, note him. But the perfect man or blameless man is ultimately Jesus Christ. The perfect man, the upright man, is Jesus Christ. And right now, that man is right up in heaven. King of kings and Lord of lords. He is the Prince of Peace. Trust in him and you will have peace. So if you are a teenager today and you're being pressured to get into the in crowd by going against Bible standards, turn and look up to him. He is your strength, he is your peace, and he has accepted you. If you're a professional looking to be promoted by taking shortcuts and compromising your character, turn from that and let him promote you. He will cause your right living to shine as the noonday. If you're single and tempted to compromise your character or to sell your virtue to find love, turn from that and let your love be in him, who will satisfy. If you're married and you're tempted to look around, you think happiness is found outside of your covenant relationship with your spouse, that is sin. Turn from it. No one will satisfy you like Jesus Christ can. Because one day, he is coming to judge both the living and the dead. The wicked will not go unpunished. Consider their end. But if you've messed up, if you've gone down the wrong path, he knows that you've stumbled. He is right there to pick you up with his hand. He has strong hands, probably nicked from a life of carpentry. Strong enough hands to take on the religious establishment and to toss their money-changing tables and cast out the merchants from the temple. Strong enough hands to take on the religious establishment. And remember Peter, when he was sinking? Though he fall, he'll not be utterly cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. If you're here today without Jesus Christ, you're one step away from salvation, and that is to repent and to believe that he died for your sins on the cross, that he was buried, and that he rose again. He is there. When you bring yourself low and humble yourself and trust in him, he will raise you up and forgive you. Let's pray. I'm going to give you a